In the vast tapestry of human history, there are stories that resonate across time, stories that speak to the very core of our existence. The tale of Yusuf is one such story. It begins not with a cataclysm or a great war, but with a quiet moment between a father and his beloved son. Young Yusuf, with eyes full of innocence and a heart pure and bright, approached his father, the Prophet Yaqub. He had seen something extraordinary, something that shimmered in the world of sleep. A dream so vivid it felt more real than the waking world itself. It was a vision that would set the course for his entire life. Yusuf spoke of his dream with a child's simple honesty. He told his father, "I saw 11 stars and the sun and the moon. I saw them all bowing down to me." An ordinary child might have forgotten such a dream by morning, but this was no ordinary dream. Yaqub, a man blessed with wisdom and prophecy himself, listened intently. He saw beyond the simple words of his son. He understood that this was not just a flight of fancy, it was a sign from the divine, a glimpse into a future of immense significance and honor that awaited Yusuf. This dream was a seed of greatness planted by the Creator. With this profound understanding came a father's protective instinct. Yaqub knew that such a special destiny could attract not only wonder but also envy. He cautioned his young son, advising him with gentle urgency not to share this dream with his older brothers. He sensed that their hearts were not yet ready to comprehend such a vision. Jealousy, he knew, is a shadow that can darken even the bonds of brotherhood. So, the secret of the stars, the sun and the moon was held close, a sacred promise between a father and a son, waiting for its time to unfold. This early moment tells us something fundamental about the universe. It suggests that our lives might be guided by a plan far grander than we can perceive. A plan that sometimes reveals itself in whispers, in dreams, in the quiet moments of connection. Yusuf's journey was set in motion by this celestial vision. It was a promise of a high station, but the path to that station would be long and arduous. It would be a path that would test every fiber of his being, demanding patience and unwavering faith in the face of unimaginable hardship. The dream was the beginning, the promise of a dawn that would only come after the darkest of nights. The human heart is a complex place. It is capable of great love, but also of great envy. The love Yaqub had for his son Yusuf was a pure and beautiful thing, but to Yusuf's older brothers, it became a source of deep-seated resentment. They watched their father's affection for their younger brother, and a shadow grew within them. They felt overlooked, their own worth diminished in their eyes. This jealousy began to fester, twisting their brotherly love into a dangerous and destructive force. They saw Yusuf not as their kin, but as an obstacle to their father's attention, a problem that needed to be removed. This dark feeling led them to conspire. They gathered in secret, their whispers filled with malice, plotting against their own flesh and blood. How could they get rid of Yusuf? Their plans were cruel, born from a place of pain and insecurity. They decided to deceive their father, to concoct a lie that would allow them to take Yusuf far away. They approached Yaqub asking if Yusuf could join them for a day of play in the fields. They promised to protect him, to watch over him carefully, but their words were a mask, hiding the terrible truth of their intentions. Their hearts were set on a path of betrayal. Yaqub was hesitant, his fatherly intuition sensing danger. He feared a wolf might harm his precious son, but the brothers persisted, feigning hurt at his lack of trust. Reluctantly, he agreed. And so they led young Yusuf away from the safety of his home, his innocent heart unaware of the darkness that had consumed his brothers. Out in the wilderness, far from their father's loving gaze, they revealed their true nature. They turned on him, stripping him of his coat, and cast him into the cold, dark emptiness of a dry well. It was an act of unimaginable cruelty, a betrayal that would echo through the ages. To complete their deceit, they took Yusuf's coat and stained it with the blood of a goat. They returned to their father that evening, weeping false tears of grief and sorrow. They presented the blood-stained coat as evidence of a terrible tragedy, claiming a wolf had devoured their brother. Yaqub's heart shattered with the news, the pain of a father losing his most beloved son. Yet, even in his immense grief, a part of him, guided by his prophetic insight, sensed the falsehood. He turned to God, embracing what he called a beautiful patience, trusting that a deeper truth lay hidden beneath this devastating lie. The betrayal was complete, and Yusuf's lonely journey had begun. Down in the darkness of the well, Yusuf was alone, but not abandoned. Hope arrived in the form of a passing caravan. Thirsty travelers, lowering their bucket for water, were astonished to find not water, but a beautiful young boy. Seeing an opportunity for profit, they pulled him from the well and took him with them on their long journey. They traveled to the mighty land of Egypt, a place of towering monuments and a bustling, unfamiliar culture. There in the marketplace, the boy who was destined for greatness was sold for a paltry price, as a slave. A life that began with a celestial dream had now descended into servitude in a foreign land. Yusuf was purchased by a high-ranking nobleman of Egypt, a man named Potiphar. This man saw something special in the young boy. He was not just a slave, but a person of grace and intelligence. He instructed his wife, Zuleika, to treat Yusuf with kindness and respect. And so, Yusuf grew from a boy into a handsome and righteous young man within the nobleman's household. He was diligent and trustworthy, and soon he was placed in charge of the entire estate. Despite his lowly status as a slave, his inherent nobility and good character shone through, earning him a position of trust and responsibility. However, this new life brought a new and difficult trial. The nobleman's wife, Zuleika, became infatuated with Yusuf's remarkable beauty and impeccable character. She tried to seduce him, to lead him away from the path of righteousness. This was a severe test of his faith and integrity. Yusuf, steadfast in his devotion to God, resisted her advances completely. He reminded her of the kindness her husband had shown him, and the grave sin she was inviting him to commit. He declared that he would never betray his master or disobey his Lord. His moral compass was unshakable, even in the face of intense temptation. In a moment of desperation, as Yusuf turned to flee from her, she lunged and tore his shirt from behind. Just then, her husband, the nobleman, walked in. To save herself from shame, Zuleika immediately accused Yusuf of trying to assault her, presenting his torn shirt as proof of his guilt. It was a terrible lie, a false accusation that placed Yusuf in an impossible position. Despite evidence suggesting his innocence, the shirt being torn from the back, the power dynamics were against him. To quell the spreading scandal, and despite his own doubts, the nobleman had Yusuf imprisoned. From a slave, he now became a prisoner, his trials growing ever deeper. The cold stone walls of a prison cell became Yusuf's new home. For a man of such purity and innocence, this was a cruel injustice. He was locked away, accused of a crime he did not commit, his name sullied by a lie. Yet even in this place of despair, Yusuf's spirit did not break. He did not curse his fate or rail against the unfairness of it all. Instead, he carried his patience and his faith with him into the darkness of the dungeon. His good character was a light that could not be extinguished by prison bars. He became a source of comfort and wisdom to the other inmates, sharing his unwavering belief in God's ultimate plan. In the prison, Yusuf met two other men, a royal cupbearer and a baker, who had also fallen from the king's favor. One night they both had strange and troubling dreams, and seeing Yusuf's piety, they came to him seeking an interpretation. The baker dreamt of birds eating bread from a basket on his head, while the cupbearer dreamt of pressing grapes for the king. Before explaining their dreams, Yusuf spoke to them about the oneness of God, using the opportunity to share his message of faith. He then correctly interpreted their fates. The baker would be executed, and the cupbearer would be freed and restored to his position. Everything happened just as Yusuf had foretold. As the cupbearer prepared to leave the prison, a free man once more, Yusuf made a simple human request. He asked the man to remember him, to mention his case to the king and help secure his release. But fate, or perhaps a divine plan, had other ideas. Once restored to his comfortable life in the palace, the cupbearer completely forgot about the righteous man he had left behind in the dungeon. And so, Yusuf remained in prison for several more years, his patience tested yet again, waiting for God's appointed time. That time finally came when the king of Egypt himself had a disturbing dream. He saw 7 fat cows being eaten by 7 lean cows, and 7 green ears of corn being consumed by 7 dry ears. None of his magicians or wise men could offer a satisfactory explanation. It was at this moment that the cupbearer suddenly remembered. He recalled the man in the prison who could interpret dreams with stunning accuracy. He rushed to the king and told him of Yusuf. The king, desperate for an answer, immediately summoned Yusuf from the prison, setting the stage for a dramatic reversal of fortune. Yusuf was about to step from the shadows into the light. Brought before the king, Yusuf did not simply interpret the dream, he provided a comprehensive economic plan. He explained that the dream foretold 7 years of abundant harvest, which would be followed by 7 years of devastating famine. He advised the king to store the surplus grain from the good years to prepare for the lean years to come. The king was astounded not only by the interpretation but also by Yusuf's wisdom, foresight and integrity. He saw at once that this was no ordinary man. He declared, "Bring him to me, I will appoint him exclusively for myself." Yusuf was not only freed but was made the treasurer of Egypt, a position of immense power and responsibility. Years passed and Yusuf's prophecy came true. The famine he had predicted gripped the entire region, and people from neighboring lands came to Egypt seeking grain. Among those who came were his own brothers. They stood before him, seeking aid, but they did not recognize the powerful Egyptian minister as the little brother they had thrown into a well so many years ago. Yusuf, however, recognized them instantly. He treated them with courtesy, gave them their provisions, but also set in motion a careful plan to bring his entire family to Egypt, especially his younger full brother Benjamin and his grieving father. Through a series of cleverly orchestrated events, Yusuf eventually revealed his true identity to his stunned and terrified brothers. They stood before him, consumed by guilt and fear, expecting the worst. They had betrayed him, sold him, and caused decades of suffering for him and their father. They were completely at his mercy. But Yusuf, the man who had been tested by betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment, showed no desire for revenge. Instead, he looked upon them with a heart full of mercy, and spoke the most powerful words of all. "There is no blame upon you today. May Allah forgive you, and He is the most merciful of the merciful." In this ultimate act of grace, the story reaches its beautiful conclusion. Yusuf sent for his entire family, and they were all reunited in Egypt. His elderly father, Yaqub, whose eyes had gone blind from weeping, had his sight restored. And as his parents and 11 brothers bowed before him, not in servitude but in respect and love, Yusuf's childhood dream was finally fulfilled. The story of Yusuf is a profound lesson for all humanity. It teaches us that even in the face of the deepest betrayal and hardship, patience and faith in God's plan will lead to triumph. It shows us that the power of forgiveness is far greater than the sting of revenge, and that a heart that trusts in the divine will always find its way home. Click on one of these videos to keep the good times rolling. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.